So today you join me, we're on a little bit of a snide meet-up, just me and a couple of the boys. We've come down to Poets Corner, which is a lake that's the specimen lake on the Abbey Ponds complex in Nottinghamshire. Brilliant little complex, 4 lakes on there. One's a Silvers Lake, one's a bit of a mixed fishery, and then you've got the Predator Lake and then the specimen lake Poets. Poets is £65 a year and then £25 per night if you want to do the nights. Fish up to £40, several over 30, decent head of 20s, some good sport. Not an easy water by any stretch of the imagination, but it is just an absolutely tranquil venue. It's in the middle of nowhere, just on a huge estate, and just a really incredible water. Jono and Daz of JD Fishery Management, who own the complex, have done a fantastic job over many years of manicuring the lakes, making sure that they've got decent stock, making sure that anything that's not right for a lake isn't in the lake, obviously make sure that anything that is right is in the lake. So as I say, doing a fantastic job. They've got a great set of bailiffs, very knowledgeable, and all very happy to give you a bit of advice and help you along with your fishing. So without further ado, what we'll do is we'll head down to the lake and I'll show you around. So heading down to the lake now. The track down, you can park behind most of the pegs on the day ticket swim side of the bank. Just looking over. It's the first bit you'll see when you arrive. What we'll do is we'll head down to the far end swim, which is also a disabled swim. It is an accessible fishery. And yeah, as I say, the lake itself is split into sections which will make more sense a little bit later. So just heading into what's known as the disabled swim. So obviously you can see there's a nice little accessible platform, nice little bench, and then the lake. So out in front there's roughly it's 6 foot or so all the way across, apart from the gravel bar that runs across kind of halfway. I don't know if you can see there's a few fish just milling around on that spot. And then just swing around and we can see the far bank. Now you can fish from the far bank. The bank that I'm on now and that far bank are days only, and then a little bit later we'll have a wander around and I'll show you the area where night fishing is allowed, on an area known as Bivy Island. From there you access this main body of water, but you've also got a bay behind, and some really nice spots, to be fair, which we'll talk about as we go through. I mean, with this particular swim, I've caught fish from this swim in a couple of spots. So over on the far margin there's a couple of areas there where fish regularly come out. One point to note is there is a build-up of rocks which is quite sharp, so you don't want to be fishing over that because that's just inviting a cut-off. But generally it's pretty snag-free for the majority of it. You do find some areas of low-lying weed, but the majority of the lake does stay fairly clear on the bottom. Across the far margin, from here you can get the bait boat across, or you can cast across, and that's generally a hot spot. We were down a couple of weeks ago, we had 7 fish off that far bank, and I think it was 1 off of the bank just over there, kind of just over where the goose is now, to be fair. And then you can see it obviously extends around. You've got the bridge over to Bivy Island. That's a bit of a spot for the fish. They do tend to like to get around the scaffold poles that hold the bridge up. There are a couple of overhanging trees as well, little snags. So all in all, lots of areas to kind of really go at. So right, we'll swing around and we'll head back up the bank. So the next spot has got 4 or 5 swims. The first one, again, you can get into the main body of water. You've got the bridge, you've got an overhang, providing there's nobody in the next couple of swims. But again, lots of features to really look at. And one thing not to discount, I would say, would be the margins. Now, whilst the water is absolutely gin clear, the fish aren't particularly shy around, getting around the margin areas and having a bit of a route around. So, it's one of those, have a walk around, get the Polaroids on and just see what you can see. Keep the eyes open. The fish do show themselves. You tend to see a lot of fish boshing out. You see the fish cruising, particularly around the gravel bar area. You do tend to see them quite regularly around that spot. And again, over in that far margin, there's a channel that goes through to the back bay. They seem to have a little patrol route that goes through into that back bay and then back round across the lake to the gravel bar and then back around into the channel, and the continuous loop pretty much continues. Right, we'll move on. As you can see, the old platforms, this lake used to be owned by a club that was predominantly a private one. The members have been members for a long time. They've done a bit of, I presume, all sorts of coarse fishing. There are some trout in here, the odd bream, not too many, some perch, then you've got the carp obviously, there are some barbel, so there's a bit of a mix of things. But again, looking from this swim, you can see you've got the overhanging tree there. There's a big gravel spot just off the edge of Bivy Island, and that starts quite shallow, drops down, but that is absolutely clear. So again, not one to discount, especially if you're fishing from this bank. And moving up, again, the pegs are all pretty similar, but it's just where you want to fish, where you've spotted them. Again, you've got the overhanging trees, you've got the far island, which is pretty much an underhand flick, to be fair. Margins again, so if I just bring you around, you can see, you've got a little reed bed that's starting to come up, and then obviously it's the same all the way up. You've got the little bay in the corner, there's a water inlet in there that at some points does run, but again, it goes back into another bay. So moving on. Another swim that's a similar view from the other, so we'll not spend too much time talking about that one. In fact, no time. We'll move up to the next one that does have a few interesting features. So again, you've got the island fish too, which you can get all the way down there if there's nobody on the other swims. And then obviously you've got the bridge, and then into the bay area. The margins do drop quite deep here. Local additions, the two swans appeared, so nice to see those being healthy. Hopefully don't bother us too much today and tomorrow for the session that we've got. And then, we'll carry on round. Corey, say hello.
Morning.
So as Corey is part of the Snide team. So the back bay, you've got over in the corner, and drops, there's a deep hole there. That's known to do fish. Then, as I say, you've got the margins, you've got the channel that goes through to the bay behind this bay. And then obviously you've got all of that water there that you can fish into. And then we're back round again to the main body. So there's a little channel down here where the fish can get in and out between the main body and the bays. But this main body is generally where I tend to concentrate. You've got the back margin there, which it is undercut. There are some snags, some roots, but if you're fishing safely and locked up, you're not going to have a problem. Again, looking down the margin, you can see it's a different perspective from looking over at the far bank where we were originally with the disabled swim looking across. You see more of the features from here. You get a better picture of the lie of the land. And again, you go into almost a bay in that back corner and following around into the main body. Again, you can see there are lots and lots of options. And as we go back across the bank, you can see from each swim there is a lot of accessible water. Every swim has got plenty of water to go at. Yeah, and again, you've got open water, you've got margins, you've got overhangs, you've got snags. Yeah, there's every option to keep every type of angler happy. We'll look at the final couple of pegs on Bivy Island, and then what we'll do is we'll go get set up, get the rods out, and we'll catch up shortly on that front. I'll let you know what each of us are doing, what our plans are, what our tactics are, and hopefully have a few fish to show you. It is quite cold, so we'll see. But hopefully between us we'll be able to at least winkle one or two out. So heading back to the boys, and we're now going to do the draw for swims, and we'll see you in a bit. So yeah, this is the swim, as you can see. So with the two rods, so the left hand rod, that's out over on the far margin, pretty much just in the gap between the trees, about half a rod length off the far bank. And then the right hand rod is kind of over towards where the taller tree is there, and again about 2 rod lengths off the bank, that one. I know that's a spot that's produced for me in the past, so if it's not broken, don't try and fix it. And just looking out at the rest of the lake, we've still got the swans. But yeah, what a glorious evening. It's dropping a little bit cool, but you know, when you've got surroundings and settings like this, you know, you can't really grumble. So we've got Nicky over there, he's fishing the end swim. He's just fishing off the far margin over there. And then there's myself, I'm set up here, and then just heading over towards the bridge. There's Corey. He's gone hardcore, he's not put the bivvy up yet. But yeah, he's fishing out one over on the far sort of bay of that bank over there, and then another one just out over in the far bay over there. So hopefully we'll see Corey with a fish shortly, and we'll see Nicky with one. I must go, that's the phone.
You right, ready?
Yep, ready, Nick. Well, good morning. So it's just after 8, been up, I don't know, since 6:30, something like that. It was a pretty cold one last night. But still didn't stop the line bites. The right hand rod, I got woken up 3-4 times with line bites, nothing solid. Nicky managed a 12 or so pound lovely little mirror in the night, so we got a couple of snaps of that this morning. I'll add that in a minute. And then Corey, who went hardcore and didn't bother with a bivvy last night, he managed a common of about £10 or so. So we are fighting through the smaller fish, but when you've got 30s and 40s in there like the ones that there are, it's definitely worth the effort. But just to see how Corey spent the night, the mad head, that was Corey's setup, and it dropped to, what was it, about -1 I think at one point. Yeah. But he stayed warm, so that's alright. And managed one. Right.
Shallow spot.
Was it on the bar?
It was on the bar,
Yeah.
Right where that's one set.
Good guy in that, mate. Right, make it breakfast time. You fancy bacon and eggs?
Yeah?
Fancy bacon and eggs?
Yeah,
Cool, I'll get one. See you in a bit. Yeah, so it was 4 fish, and I lost one as well last night, about 9:25 I think it was. So yeah, been a decent session. Just need these alarms to start making a little bit of noise and the bobbins start dancing. But anyway, time for bacon and eggs. Catch you later. So just to recap on the session, Nick is now left. He's managed 2 fish. So neither off the margin spot we expected to produce, which is a spot that normally does. Both fish from out in open water. As I said, Corey had a fish earlier in the very small hours of the morning. And nothing else to report today so far. Another guy's just turned up to fish the lake, so Corey's had to move 1 rod. But yeah, it's gone quiet, it's gone still. But just to go back around the lake, you know, it is a club ticket. As I said like earlier on, it's £65 for the year and then £25 for 24 hours, starting 11 AM, finishing 11 AM. And yeah, decent stamp of fish. There are some smaller fish in that you have to work through, but yeah, there's a management program in place, and everything is looking really, really good for the complex. There are 3 other lakes on the complex, I think I mentioned yesterday. So there's a predator lake that's got some really nice pike in. There's a silvers lake with a good head of bream, roach, rudd, so on. There's pond 1, which has got some carp, still got some upper 20s in there. It's got some barbel to £15 or so, some good perch, some decent bream if that's your thing, and just a mix of course species. And then obviously, you know, Poet's Corner, the one that we're fishing, the Specimen Lake, which has got carp up to the £40 mark. So all in all, a great complex. The ticket structure is £65 for this lake on its own, and then you can take, I think it's the Silvers Lake on a separate ticket. I'll have to check that with the owners. Or you can have all 3 of the other lakes for £130 for the year. Just to note, on the other lakes there is no night fishing. Poets is the only one where night fishing is allowed, and night fishing is only allowed from the island. But it's a very clean, very mature, very secluded location. Doesn't get fished heavily, so it's one thing I like. You know, the fish aren't pressured in any of the lakes really. The owners are very keen to make sure that they've got, you know, good quality anglers fishing the lakes. Yeah, they invest a lot of money in the complex, and in return they want to make sure that everything is secure, and you know, they've got people that know what they're doing fishing the lakes, which is a good thing. You know, personally, I think they're doing a lot of really good things, especially with Poet's Corner. Yeah, they've invested. They've, at the end of last year, restocked with some 30s, a 40. So yeah, they're looking for the future of this lake as well as growing carp on their own carp. Yeah, they've got a good program for that. So all in all, it promises to be a spectacular venue over the next 5-10 years. Not that it isn't now. You know, it's one of my go-to lakes. I really enjoy coming down here. It's quite local. You know, it's easy to drop on. Most of the time I'm the only person fishing the night, so I've got a lot of water to go at. But that said, I hope that changes, and you know, hopefully we'll see a lot more people coming down and fishing the complex over time. As I mentioned, if anybody does want any information about the lake, you know, or anything to do with the fishery, then please do get in touch, and I can either tell you what I know, or I can put you in touch with Daz or Jono, the owners, and you know, they can arrange to bring you for a walk round, or you know, just tell you a bit more about the complex. Anyway, off to hopefully catch a couple more, and hopefully next time you see me, I'll be holding a fish.